It is indeed a beautiful morning, and we're so happy to see you. I personally feel like we have been brought before the throne of God in our worship today. I appreciate the reading of the scriptures, the prayers that were offered, the songs that were sung, and the giving of our means and the observance of the Lord's Supper and the fine devotional that John gave us in regard to those things. Sometimes we think that we come together to hear a sermon. That's not really why we come together. We come together to worship God. A part of what we do in worshiping God on Sunday is hear a sermon. But that's not our primary purpose. Our primary purpose is to bow before God, to say, "You are worthy, make me a servant." We've been talking about hope. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about what hope is, trying to understand hope. And since that's been a couple of weeks now, let me just give you the microwave version of what we said on that occasion. Hope is desire plus expectation. It's not some pipe dream. It's not some wishful thinking. Biblically, hope is what you want, but what you have an expectation of having. Our hope is heaven. We certainly desire that, but we also expect it, because God, who is faithful, has promised it. We also said that faith stands under hope. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. If you want to know about hope, you have to look under it and there find faith. Where there is no faith, there can be no hope. And we also said that hope is an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast, that keeps us from drifting around, not being stable. But we're talking today about a new aspect of hope, the fact that hope can be threatened. Romans chapter 8 and verse 24 is a wonderful verse. It says, "For we are saved in this hope, but hope that is seen is not hope. For why does one still hope for what he sees?" We hope for things we can't see. And Paul says we're saved by this hope. And he said in verse 25 that follows that we should eagerly wait for it with perseverance, stick-to-itiveness, staying steadfast, staying faithful. The Hebrews writer in chapter 3 of his book in verse 6 says that we should stand firm to the end. Now you put all of that together, here's what it says. We can lose hope. Our hope can wane. We can be full of hope, but something will happen that causes us to lose our hope. I know people who have. I know people who were so faithful, so strong, so full of hope, and things happened, and they no longer have that hope. I think that's sad. I don't want that to happen to us. Those of us who are filled with hope, I want us to die filled with hope. I don't want it to wane at any point during our lives. But it can. Let me mention a couple of things this morning that can cause our hope to wane. Number one, when good things happen to bad people. Did you listen carefully as that passage from was read from Psalm 73. There's a man named Asaph. He's struggling with his hope. He looks around and he sees good things happening to bad people. He said, that's not right. They seem to get all the breaks. It seems like everything goes well for them. They have more than they need. I don't get it. Why is it that that happens? I wonder if you've ever felt that way. I wonder if you've ever said, what's the use? The more I try, the harder I try, the worse it gets. I wonder if you've ever said, I'm trying to live right, but I just can't seem to get ahead. Have you ever said that? I know you have. And you know how I know you have? Because I know you're human. And we humans think like that sometimes. There are things that just aren't fair, that just aren't right. The worst guy in town can seem to be at the most ease to have the best. Finally, Asaph got his bearings. May I read for you from Psalm 73, verses 16 through 19. If I had said, I will speak thus, I would have been untrue to the generation of your people. When I thought how to understand this, it was too painful for me until I went into the sanctuary of God. And then I understood their need, their end. Surely you set them in slippery places and cast them down to destruction. Oh, how they are brought to desolation as in a moment. They are utterly consumed with terrors. Asaph said, I finally got it. It's not all about this life. God doesn't render all accounts due in this life. How many times have you heard me say, nobody ever gets away with anything? We say, well, he's getting away with that, or he got away with that. No. God doesn't render all accounts in this life. Nobody ever gets away with anything. God remembers. And we'll face those things in judgment. And it came to Asaph finally that there is hope after this life. Beginning at verse 25, he said, whom have I in heaven but you? And there is none upon earth that I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. For indeed, those who are far from you will perish. You have destroyed all those who desert you with harlotry. It is good for me to draw nigh to God. I have put my trust in the Lord, that I may declare all your works. Oh, Asaph, you finally got it. I wonder if we have. How many times have we looked around, saw the wicked prospering, and we think, what's the use? And our hope begins to wane. We no longer hold on to it like we once did. And if we, like Asaph, could learn, nobody gets away with anything. We'll face all that we've done, certainly in judgment. God knows. And it's good for me that I've trusted Him, because I have hope after this life. Well, let's turn that coin over. How about when bad things happen to good people? Did you ever wonder about that? Did that ever shake your faith? I expect to the man on the street, the number one barrier to belief is this: it's not fair. when bad things happen to very good people. And that takes us to the story of Job. You remember it, I'm sure. Job's one of the good guys. Read the beginning of the book. Consider my servant Job. He's an upright man. He's righteous in all of his ways. The devil says, yeah, but. The reason he's righteous is that he knows where his bread's buttered. He's doing it because it's self-serving. If you took all of that away, he would curse you to your face. God said, no, he wouldn't. And Satan was given permission to do anything that he wanted to Job except take his life. And Job's wife, bless her heart, in all of her wisdom said, why don't you just curse God and die? Job said, no, I won't do that. And then his friends, quote unquote, came, and they said, Job, the reason this is happening is because you've done something bad. If you would just confess it, God would bless you again. You see, their reasoning was like this. God rewards the righteous and punishes the wicked. You're being punished and not rewarded, therefore you must be wicked. And Job said, no, I won't confess to something I didn't do. I can't tell God I've been wicked when I haven't. He maintained his integrity. He never lost it. But how many times we say of someone who dies young, that's not right. Of someone who's diagnosed with a terrible disease, that's not fair. When it's our mother, or our father, or our child, or our mate, and bad things are happening, and it's just not fair. It's just not right. I wonder if we can have the faith of Job. I wonder if we can maintain our integrity like Job and not blame God for something for which he's not responsible. And so I've given you two examples this morning thus far. Asaph, who was concerned about good things happening to bad people, and Job, who was concerned about bad things happening to good people. Let's bring that together. What's the problem? What's the real problem behind all of this? I'm going to say it's faulty thinking. Sometimes our thinking is just askew. It's just faulty. It doesn't follow. And maybe it makes sense to us. It seems to ring true to us. But it really isn't. Let me tell you about faulty thinking. Everything in life is fair. I don't know who told you that, but they lied to you. I can remember our children when they were younger and something would happen. One of them especially had the regular statement, "That's not fair." My answer was always the same. You're right. Life is not fair. Nobody ever promised that it would be. And I wonder if the way Jesus was treated was fair. John talked about the abuse that he suffered. He was abused before he ever got to Calvary, mistreated by people along the way, and certainly immediately prior to and at Calvary, he was so mistreated, so persecuted. Would you ever look at Jesus and say, "Now, Jesus, what happened to you was absolutely fair"? No, it wasn't. You need to get out of your head this idea that life is fair. Because God wants us to serve Him because we love Him and not because life's fair. Can you imagine if God would say to you, You just become a Christian and I'll make everything fair. We would have people lined up to confess Jesus and be baptized because they would say, that's what I want. But that's self-serving. What about I say, God, I love you and I'll serve you no matter what life throws at me. No matter what happens, like Job, I will maintain my integrity. And no matter what happens, like Asaph, I will realize that you don't bring everything into account in this life, and I will look forward with hope to the next life. Life is not fair. That's faulty thinking when we believe it is. But it's also faulty thinking when we believe there's no value in suffering. You know, people in the Bible say some astounding things, and then we think about them. David said in the 119th Psalm, "It is good for me that I've been afflicted, that I might learn your statutes." I was talking to Dell as she came in this morning asking about her eyesight. Some of us have been through a real rough patch recently, haven't we? Dell has certainly been. Lisa has certainly been. Barbara has been. Al has been. I have been. And in the midst of all of that, we think that that is the worst possible thing and that no good can ever come from that. And David said, think again. Sometimes out of the worst of times, good can come. James, as he wrote that wonderful book to us in the first chapter, said in verses 2 and 3, "My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials." Wait a minute, James, you can't mean that. Count it all joy when you fall into various trials. Why, James? Knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. It will teach you to be patient. And patience will pay off in your life. Sometimes all we can do is wait patiently for things to unfold. Paul pointed out some good that comes from bad times. This is a beautiful passage in 2 Corinthians chapter 1. "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort those who are in any trouble with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God." It's a little hard to read, but here's what it means. One of the things that comes from all of the bad things that happens is we learn to help other people. We learn that, yeah, that can happen. I have some sense of that. I've been comforted. Let me comfort other people. I've been helped. Let me help other people. People have given me a hand up. Let me give a hand up to other people. That's one of the good things that comes from suffering. And Peter says in 1 Peter 5:7, "Casting all your cares on him, for he cares for you." There are times that all that I can do is just turn it over to the Lord. Say, too much for me, God. It's in your hands. You handle it. And John, in Revelation 21, talks about that place of no mores, no more suffering, no more pain, no more dying, for the former things have passed away. Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. I've heard enough, cried enough to do me in my lifetime. I put those there for a reason if you're looking at the slide. Did you notice James, Paul, Peter, John? You know what that says? All through the New Testament. All through the New Testament. New Testament writers said, sometimes if you look in the rearview mirror of life, you see that good things came from bad things. That God was there all the time. And you're a better person having gone through it. Let me tell you a story. It's true because it's a personal story. In the very wee morning hours of this past Friday, I was in so much pain that I did not know what to do. And I woke Sierra up and I said, Sierra, I need to go to the emergency room. Because of mobility issues, she said, I'm going to call the ambulance to take you. And so she did. They came very shortly. And when they put me in the ambulance, the attendant said, which hospital do you want to go to? And I said, well, I go to UT. I'm supposed to have surgery there Monday morning. They said, we've been instructed to tell people that there's a between 12 and 14 hour minimum waiting list. And I said, I can't wait that long. I'm in too much pain. They said, I think if we take you to Blunt, we can get you right in. I said, take me wherever they can get me right in. And so in a very few minutes, I was in the Blunt Memorial emergency room. Within 15 minutes, I was in a room. Within a half an hour, the doctor had come to see me. Nurses were scurrying about. They found out that the suprapubic stent that I have had clogged up. Hadn't been able to go to the restroom for some 15 or 16 hours. And all of that was building up inside, and I felt like I was going to explode. They started giving me pain medicine, gave me some morphine. Didn't work. The nurse said, let's quit playing around. Let's let the doctor give us authority for something a little more powerful than that. And so they gave me a shot of Dilaudid, and I still hurt, I just didn't care. And finally at 7 o'clock, when their urologist came in, he came down and he got me unstopped. It was immediate relief. You've noticed that Gwendolyn's not with us this morning. She lives in a house with two other special needs girls. Because of the work that Jody had and because what was going to happen to me was very uncertain, we thought it best not to bring her home this weekend. But she called and called and called and called, wanting to know about Papa. And finally, Jody said, Gwen, you've got to quit calling and let me work. I've got work to do. If anything changes with Papa, I'll let you know. Okay, Mama. 15 minutes later, she called back. And Jody thought, what do I do? Do I ignore her? Do I block her? Or do I give her one more chance? And she said, what is it, Gwendolyn? Gwendolyn said, Mama, call Cutie Pie. Now, some of you have no idea who Cutie Pie is. It's one of our elders. And John, it's not you. And Brian, it's not you. For some reason, Rusty is Cutie Pie. Jody said, "Why should I call Cutie Pie?" And Gwendolyn said, "Cutie Pie, pray." A special needs girl taught me something. Cutie Pie, pray. She believed what I needed was prayers. And she's seen the elders stand before this congregation on occasion and pray for me and others. Don't tell me that nothing positive ever comes out of pain, that nothing positive ever comes out of suffering, because it does. And I think another faulty thinking is that everything must have an answer. I can't tell you how many times I've asked recently, why? Have you asked that? Why? Why me? Why now? And I used to have all of those wonderful answers. I used to be able to say, well, people make bad choices, and they do. And I used to say, we live in a world of order, sometimes that works against us, and it does. But here's my go-to answer now, I don't know. Everything in life does not have an answer. Deuteronomy 29:29, if you don't know that verse, you need to underline it in your Bible, know where it is. The secret things belong to God, but the things that have been revealed belong to us and our children. I can only know what God reveals. What He hasn't, I can't know. But what I do know is that He has promised in all situations to be with His people. And folks, you can take that to the bank every time. Proverbs 3 is one of those passages that you see a lot on little signs and frame pieces. But it's worth our knowing. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. It's faulty thinking to think that all in life is fair, that there's nothing positive that ever comes from suffering, and that we must have all of the answers. And many situations look hopeless from a purely human perspective. And many trusting God have forged their lives in the fires of pain and suffering and loss. And the strongest people I know have had the hardest lives and have come through them strong in faith, strong in hope. But hope's not meant to be some abstract idea. It's meant to be an ever-present power in our lives. It's not that I've already attained, but I'm reaching forward to that goal which is before. That was Paul's words, stretching forward to the goal before. Thank you for your kind attention. Let's pray together. Father, we thank you for the value of hope, the hope that makes us hang on when things seem to be going so contrary to us. May we not think in faulty ways that would diminish our hope, but may we always look forward to being with you, knowing that faith or hope will be lost in sight, and we'll be in that city of no mores. Bless us to that end. In Jesus' name, amen.